Velkommen til Artbubble TV fra Dokk1 i Aarhus. Vi har inviteret Antony Johnston i studiet, og Antony er forfatteren bag den her, The Coldest City, som lige er blevet filmatiseret som Atomic Blonde. Antony, welcome.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you. You did The Coldest City a few years ago, and now it's been turned into a movie starring Charlize Theron, an Oscar-winning actress. Could you talk us a bit about the process going from the early days of The Coldest City, what inspired you to do that, and into these last couple months, really?
Sure. Well, I wrote The Coldest City in a time when I'd done a lot of graphic novels before, but I'd gotten out of the habit, if you like, and I was writing a lot of video games, commissioned comics work, and I wanted to take some time to do a story for me, something that was just mine, that I would want to read myself. And so I spent a summer just writing a script with no thought to whether it would be published, or who might publish it, or even if anybody else would want to read it. And that is what became The Coldest City. Luckily, I did sell it, and many people did want to read it. But it was written very much as a story for me, the kind of story that I like to read. And it was set it's set in the dying days of the Cold War, just a couple of weeks before the Berlin Wall came down. And that's a period of history that had a very strong impact on me. I remember watching the scenes of the wall coming down on live television news when I was a teenager, and being just amazed that this could even happen. The very idea that the Berlin Wall could come down and the USSR could start to collapse, these were unthinkable things growing up during the Cold War, and so that period of history was very big in my life, and that's why I decided to set the book in that time, and that in turn informed the story and the plot, and is how we got the book that we now have. With regard to the movie, the book was optioned by Charlize Theron's production company before it was published, based mostly just on the script, while Sam Hart, the artist, was still drawing it. And we then had a screenplay written by Kurt Jonstad, which was great. And then it sat in what Hollywood calls development hell for a couple of years, when nothing really happened. And then in May 2015, I think it was, Charlize and her company went to Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival, with an agreement in place with the studio, and some financing had happened already, and they took it there and sold the idea to distributors around the world, and that enabled us to get a budget. At the same time, Mad Max Fury Road hit cinemas, and of course that was a huge success, and especially for Charlize, and suddenly everybody wanted to make a movie with Charlize, an action movie with Charlize especially. And so suddenly everything happened very quickly. In a matter of months we had a new script, or a new draft of the script, still by Kurt. We had a director on board with David Leitch. We had a whole raft of actors who all wanted to be in a movie with Charlize, because who wouldn't? We also have James McAvoy, John Goodman, Toby Young, Sophia Boutella, Eddie Marsan, two Danish actors. Forgive me if I mispronounce their names. We have Roland Muller,
yeah,
and Johannes Hauke Johansson, who I think has been in Game of Thrones. So it really is an international cast, and a really star-studded cast.
It is, yeah.
And filming took place in Budapest and Berlin at the end of 2015 and start of 2016. So it all happened very quickly. Once things started rolling, it was full speed ahead.
Yeah, and the trailers come out, and of course it looks like an action movie. But when you read the comic book, you get more the John le Carre vibe. You get the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy vibe.
The book is much more of a traditional Cold War spy story. I'm a big fan of John le Carre and Len Deighton, but I also do love James Bond, the Bourne movies, things like that. But the book, yes, is very sober. It's a noir mystery.
Yeah.
And the film is much more
It is
high octane,
Yeah,
lots more action,
looks that way.
more
Definitely.
fights and guns and explosions and car crashes and things. But I mean, that's partly because of the director, David Leitch, who was one of the co-directors of John Wick, the first John Wick starring Keanu Reeves. So we knew that that was what he wanted to do with the movie. But the structure of the story in the movie is actually pretty much the same as the book. There are lines from the book in the movie. Characters are the same. Their names are the same. So it has a different feel, but you can see the DNA of the book in the movie. It's not as different as the trailer might make you think.
And the movie is, of course, or the book rather, is about a spy who is called into MI5 to retrieve a list of agents in Berlin before it falls into the hands of, well, pretty much anybody.
Yes, MI6.
MI6.
MI5 is the home security.
The local, yeah.
Yes. Yes, the main character, Lorraine Broughton, is an experienced veteran spy, but she's never worked in Berlin for MI6. And when the list of spies goes missing, MI6 in London don't know who they can trust in Berlin. And so, because she has no ties to the city, they assume, therefore, that she won't have any bias. She has no ties or connections to cloud her judgment.
Right.
She can go in with a fresh head, as it were. And so that's why they send her in. Of course, what they don't know is that the Berlin Wall is about to come down, and in a city full of spies, as Berlin was during the Cold War, everybody is on edge. It's a hornet's nest or a viper's nest, if you like, of there's betrayals, there's a defection that goes wrong, people crossing back and forth over the wall, murder. It's
It's got everything.
everything's in there. Yes.
Yeah. And did you, when you started writing this, because I know you've done a lot of different work as well, and we're going to take that in a moment. You worked on Queen and Country as the only person outside of Greg Rucka to write Queen and Country, which was also a story set in Berlin, if I remember correctly.
No, that was in Ireland.
That was in Ireland.
Yes, that was in Belfast, which same initial letter. Maybe that's why you're confused.
Well, I just seem to recall that having been in Berlin as well.
No, that's all set in Ireland around the time of the Troubles, the IRA and all that. Greg asked me to write that story because my paternal family is Scots-Irish.
Right.
And so I have I didn't grow up in Ireland, so I don't claim to have first-hand knowledge, but I had more knowledge of that situation than
he would.
Than many people would.
Yeah.
And so he asked me if I would write that story. I've known Greg for a long time. We have a shared interest in that sort of spy story.
Yeah.
And it was writing that story. I had so much fun writing Queen and Country. That was what inspired me to then write a spy book for my next graphic novel. So I started work on The Coldest City, I think 2 years after I had written that story for Queen and Country.
Yes, because in the meantime, during those 2 years as well, you're working on Wasteland,
Yes.
which just finished recently. 60 issues, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
60 issues, 8 years.
Yeah, that's a long time for a book, and there are not many books or comic books that actually take that long anymore.
No, sadly, because I really like those stories, which is why I wrote one. But no, there aren't many comic stories that last beyond 20 issues anymore these days. Even 20 issues is considered a long run in the American comics industry these days. But yes, Wasteland, It was difficult at times. We had to struggle a little, but we made it, and 60 issues for... It's a big, sprawling, post-apocalyptic epic, which is why I knew it would take. When I started, I said it would be 50 or 60 issues, and it ended up being 60. And honestly, it could have been longer, but you've got to end things somewhere.
Of course, otherwise you're going to end up like a lot of comics, either rebooting or resetting or killing everybody, or
just never ending.
Yeah, exactly.
And Wasteland always had an end. I always knew what the ending would be. I had the final few scenes and images in my mind right from the start. So the whole series was really building up towards that ending. And yeah, I was very happy with how we got there, but it was exhausting.
I can believe that. Yeah.
Really, really exhausting writing a series that long, which is why most comics creators who do a series that long don't do it again.
And that brings us to the work you're doing now with The Fuse. There are 3 books out of The Fuse? 4 now. And this is entirely different from The Coldest City and, of course, from Wasteland. Here we have a multi-international space station orbiting Earth with police and entire cultures having moved into space. And the story follows 2 policemen and their colleagues as they try to keep some semblance of order on the station, which is called The Fuse.
Yes, or nicknamed The Fuse.
Nicknamed The Fuse,
yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. You've summed it up perfectly. It's a murder mystery with 2 homicide detectives in a giant orbiting solar energy station. The idea is that the station was built to collect solar energy and then use that on Earth, send that back down to Earth. It was never meant to have a city grow in the middle of the space station, but what happened was engineers who built it decided that they liked living in space, and they stayed there, and it grew over the years into this big city of 500,000 people that is kind of jury-rigged together. It was never planned. There's no civic planning. It all just kind of... People kept expanding and building and bolting their own places to live and places to work, and it's become this big ramshackle city, as you say, full of lots of different people, different cultures, people escaping Earth, looking for a new life in the stars, that sort of thing. But it's never as glamorous as they think it's going to be. And wherever there are people, there will be crime, there will be murder, and so that's why we focus on following the cases of these homicide detectives. And through them we can see all the different social layers of a place like the Fuse as well. Because again, wherever there are people, there will be high status people, low status people, the middle classes. You can't escape that. That's part of human society. And so we get to see how that works in space through the eyes of these detectives.
And it's a wonderful story for those who haven't read it as well, because the idea of humanity going into space as well, I mean, you could think of the Fuse as being the final product maybe of the International Space Station if we kept sending people up, and like you're saying, they're just bolting pieces on and it expands, not organically, because it's not an organic kind of thing, but
metaphorically,
yes.
Organically, yes.
Do you see us in space in this kind of situation I'm not going to say the near future, but maybe a few hundred years down the road?
I would like to think so. I don't know if it's inevitable. I'm not comfortable saying inevitable, but it feels like it's something that lots of people would want to do. And as, frankly, the Earth starts to become more inhospitable, and as our energy needs change and increase and have an impact upon the environment and the planet we're living on, I think the attraction of living in space will increase. So, like I say, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't want to say that I think it's inevitable or that it will happen, but I think it's very possible. I think anybody who says it definitely won't happen is perhaps jumping to conclusions.
Would you, well, it's kind of difficult choice to set up. If I were to say, which future do you think you would prefer? The one you see in The Fuse, or the one we see in Wasteland?
Oh goodness, the one in the Fuse. Definitely in Wasteland, it's the end of the world. It's 100 years after the end of the world. No, that would be a horrible place to live. And the Fuse is not a nice place to live, but it's no worse than what we have now. So I would much rather live in that future. Yes.
Now, of course, you are a writer rather than an artist, though I do know you can draw. When you're looking for an artist to work with, what do you look for?
I don't look for a style. I've worked with many different artists who all have many different styles. What I look for is somebody who can tell a story visually using the comics page, who has that clarity of storytelling so that you can follow what's happening. The Coldest City being a good example, I knew the story has many, many twists and turns. It is a mystery. And so I knew that I needed an artist whose storytelling would be clear so that the reader wouldn't be confused by what they're looking at. They may be confused by the story, and hopefully they will be, because, like I say, it is a mystery. There are things about the story where I want the reader to think, oh, and be confused. But I didn't want that to come from them not being able to read the images well enough. And so that's why I asked Sam Hart to draw it. I've known Sam for a number of years, and I know that he shares that passion for clear storytelling. So I look for that a lot. And after that, I look for interesting, expressive artists. But an actual style isn't really important to me. I just want somebody who can tell a story well and who is into the subject matter. That's very important. I think you have to work with an artist who has the same enthusiasm for the story and the genre as I do. And I've been very fortunate that I've worked with many artists like that.
And as well, again, because you're a writer, what kind of advice would you give to a budding writer who wants to break into comics?
Well, that depends on what they want to do. If somebody wanted to follow my sort of career, good luck. I always say to people who want to make their own comics, if people want to work on Batman and Spider-Man and Superman, that's great, but I don't have a lot of experience doing that. I have some, but not a lot, and that's not my focus. If people want to do the same sort of thing I do, then I always advise them to write stories that mean something to them. Write the story that they want to read, because if you do that, you are guaranteed to write a story that nobody else will write. The story will be yours. It may be in a genre other people work in, spies, sci-fi, whatever, but the story itself will be unique to you if you write what you want to see. So that's the first step. The next step is to make sure that you are not cliched. And to do that, you must read widely within the area that you want to write, so that you know what the cliches are and you can avoid them. And then you must persevere. And that is the hardest thing to do and the hardest truth to swallow, but it is the truth. You must persevere. You must never give up. You must work hard and keep trying and striving. I had been a professional comic book writer for 14 years before The Coldest City was optioned for film. And if that had never happened, I would still be writing comics. That's fine. But I know many people will see that as a pinnacle of success. But it still took me 14 years to get there. I could have given up after 10 years, but I didn't, because this is my passion. And I knew that to achieve anything, I had to keep persevering and work hard and just keep, I don't want to say chasing the dream, because that's such a cliche, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
you must always think, why did I start doing this? And that's what drives you and keeps you going through, you know, there will be some hard times, but there will also be some amazing, incredible times. And you won't see those unless you keep trying.
Broughton, an expert in escape and evasion. Proficient in intelligence collection.
Let's cut the crap, shall we?
And hand-to-hand combat. It's an impressive set of skills.
Talents can be overrated.
Lorraine, how well do you know James Gascoigne?
Enough to say hello.
He's dead.
Find out who's hunting down our operatives. A lot of brave men and women are going to show up dead.
Fuck.
Your contact is David Percival. Let me help you with your bags. Welcome to Berlin.
Fuck's sake.
Trust no one. Oh, bollocks.
You look like you need saving.
So you made contact with the French operative?
Obviously.
I think I fucking love you.
That's too bad.
She's a killer queen.